All right, we're not going to waste your time today. We're going to go through these pretty quick. I'll give you the answers, explain them as we go forward. We're doing 2015 today. Make sure that if you haven't gone through and tried the questions yet, that you do so. So pause the video and take a shot at those. Hopefully you're getting pretty good at them. All right, here we are for number one here, the first half of it. So first of all, and again, I think obviously as you guys are kind of going through these, those of you that have been doing each one, there's only so many questions they can ask, right? So they kind of change how they do it. So the question, this one says, assume the United States economy is operating below full employment. Just a fancy way of saying that we're in a recessionary gap, right? Hopefully your graph looks like this. Double check, make sure you label everything, all right? So for example, price level 1, Y1, YF at full employment. You should be pretty well set with that, all right? If we're going to pursue monetary policy, the Federal Reserve, and they give you the federal funds rate that they have to change, and so we want to lower that federal funds rate, right? We want more people to borrow money, alrighty, and your graph will look something like this: increase our supply of money for Part C. It asks you show the effect on the nominal interest rate. Make sure that you're showing that the interest rate is decreasing. All right, Part D here coming up shortly. Okay, Part D here, just quick review. Remember, we have these the spending multiplier, and you've also got to remember the tax multiplier, which again, the nice thing is you can have your notes in front of you as you move forward. So it gives us the marginal propensity to consume. All right, that's that 0.8, right? And what we need to get from that is we need to find the marginal propensity to save, which is 0.2 in this case. Remember, MPC plus MPS has to equal 1, okay? And our spending multiplier is 1 over MPS, which is going to equal 5 in this case, all right? And I went ahead and did the tax multiplier to equal 4. So now we've got to take the spending increase times the multiplier equals $300 million. So basically it's X times 5 equals 300 billion, sorry. That equals your spending needs to increase by $60 billion. Okay, for Part D1. Now, for Part D2 here, they don't have you do the math. They're just asking you, is the effect they're going to get from cutting taxes going to be as good as if they increase spending? And the correct answer to that is that they would have to have a greater tax cut than a spending cut, okay? And the reason for that is because the tax cut multiplier or the tax multiplier is less than that. So it would have to be greater. And they ask you to explain, okay? And I put down because the multiplier is less, all right? All right, Part E here real quick. All right, we know that if the government decreases taxes, our aggregate demand is going to increase. They've got more income, right? Just give that quick explanation there. Now, for number 2, I looked the answers up on the internet, and you actually had 3 options. My first answer was, in this particular case, long run aggregate supply is going to stay the same, okay, because there's no investment spending. We're not getting more resources, right? But they also took the answer increases because people will eventually have wages go up, which creates an incentive to work more, which creates more people wanting to work, is kind of what they wrote. So that would have worked for you. And then I also saw like the whole big long run around that it could decrease because the government's not collecting revenue, so the government has to borrow more money, which raises interest rates, which means that businesses can't start and those types of things. So anyway, kind of the nice thing, the bad news is it's kind of confusing that you can have so many possible answers, right? The good news is that, you know what, sometimes you can kind of walk yourself into a correct response. So sometimes the more you explain, the better off. Just kind of one thing to give you hopefully a little bit of confidence that, you know what, whatever you choose you're going to do, make sure you explain it well. All right, starting out with number 2 here. If you haven't gone through it yet, pause the video, go through it. All right, take a shot at it. But anyway, I set up, my little T-chart, so to speak, of the 2 different countries in this particular case, furnaces and solar panels. We've actually had this problem before on one of our tests. So identify the opportunity cost winners here, right? I'm sorry, comparative advantage winners is probably the better way to put it. Okay, so anyway, whether or not we need all that information moving forward, I like to do it. It's pretty easy. It helps me organize my thoughts. All right, pretty straightforward. All right, part A is country Y. That's easy, absolute advantage. Remember, that's just who can produce more of a certain product. Opportunity cost we figured out over here is 2 solar panels and 1 furnace for country Y. All right. Part C, they ask you to explain it. X has the comparative advantage in producing furnaces. Simply put, their opportunity cost is less than that of country Y. Part D, this is the part that we kind of get mixed up on, right? We've got to kind of do some thinking and make sure we're organized. So first of all, we know they're asking about country X, and they say, should country X produce solar panels domestically or import them? Okay. Well, we know if these two countries are going to trade, X is producing furnaces due to opportunity cost, Y is producing solar panels. Okay. So the question is, if X gives up 2 furnaces and gets 1 solar panel, is that a good deal for country X? I reduced it down. I made it 1 furnace equals 1/2 of a solar panel. So basically, X would trade 1 furnace to Y and get a half a solar panel. Okay, well, if country X decides to produce solar panels themselves, if they give up that 1 furnace, they gain 4/3 of a solar panel. So anyway, that's what you're comparing, right? In this particular case, if they trade, they get less back than whether or not they would have just decided to produce solar panels on their own. The trade deal is no good. It's crappy. And again, they have you word something a little bit differently. They're going to produce them domestically. Right? So saying the same thing a bunch of different ways, right? Trade deal is no good, so we're going to produce domestically instead. But anyway, that's number 2. If you haven't done number 3 yet, you only need to do part A on number 3. So anyway, if you haven't done it yet, take a quick shot, and we'll show you the answer in a sec. Okay, so they're asking you, they use the country Japan, right? Our countries, it doesn't really matter necessarily what countries they ask us about. But anyway, they say, how does an increase in Japan's budget deficit affect each of those following? So we only got to do part A here, part 1 and 2. So remember, our government budget deficit, that means that they need to borrow money. Okay. And when the government changes their situation, we're going to shift the demand for borrowing money. This is our loanable funds graph. Okay. And it's going to increase the demand for loans, right? And it's going to raise interest rates. Okay. So their interest rates will increase. All right. Due to the government needing to borrow more money is what you can say. I would say that we've referred to it as the crowding out effect. That might be a little bit too specific. So say that the government needs to borrow, and that will be good enough. Okay. Now, the next part says, all right, it's trying to eventually tie us into our aggregate demand stuff, right? So it says, what's that going to do for private domestic investment? Meaning that, what's that going to do basically for how much money businesses are able to borrow, okay, to build new buildings, buy machines, whatever. Well, we know that when interest rates go up, we're going to decrease how many loans we take out. Okay, so our investment spending decreases. Doesn't even have you explain it. You can take a guess on one of those. All right. Hope you're getting better at these. Hope you're getting some confidence. We'll see you again on Wednesday moving forward.